fibers, welcome back to today's session. Once again we are here with the another topic related to sexual reproduction in flowering plants, and we have already discussed so many topics related to this particular chapter. We have discussed about the megasporangium, microsporangium, we have discussed about the megasporogenesis, microsporogenesis, and we have also discussed about the pollination. So today we are going to discuss about the outbreeding devices so that we can avoid self-pollination, because the self-pollination sometimes expresses the certain kind of a genes which are not good for the growth and development of the body. So what we can do to basically have or maximize the cross-pollination. So we have this outbreeding devices today to discuss. Once again we are here. So children, before we start, let me introduce you to myself. I am Anam Khan. I'll be your botany expert for the session 2023 and 2024. Like we have been discussing about all the topics related to the botany. We are still going on with this particular chapter. I hope you are getting up, you're basically catching up with all the particular topics. Please join us on the Embibe app, all the app particular. This is like one-stop solution for everything. You can basically attempt the pre-class activities before coming to the session. After the session gets over, you get to avoid basically attempt the post-class assignments so that you can have a better understanding of the concept. So just like without wasting any time, let's start the first other topic of the outbreeding devices. Next. So children, in this chapter, all the topics which have been basically covered already, and today topic is basically the outbreeding devices and of course a little bit about the pollen pistil interaction. So we have completed the sexual reproduction in flowering plants introduction. We have discussed about the flower parts, the accessories. We have discussed about the microsporangium, megasporangium. We have also discussed about the pollination, and in the coming session we are going to discuss about the most important topic of the sexual reproduction in flowering plants, and of course the most important characteristic of the angiosperm, which is the double fertilization, which is very unique. And how does it happen? It is absolutely very important for your board examination, and if ever you wanted to give the NEET examination in future, this chapter is absolutely very important. Yes, and it is easy also. It is absolutely easy. I think it's very easy, of course. Then we have post fertilization, the structure and the events, and yet we have fruit formation. We see how the seed and fruit are being formed, and we're going to discuss about the apomixis and the polyembryony also. Let's see what we have to basically cover in today's topic. Today is all about the outbreeding devices and the pollen pistil interaction. Yes, so let's discuss about what is the outbreeding devices. So children, before that, you know, in the previous lecture we have discussed about the pollination. We have seen about what is pollination. It is the transfer of pollen grain from the anther to the stigma. Yes, and through various means we can do that. Yes, we have seen how the self-pollination is done, how the cross-pollination is done, how basically all the particular measurements, or I would say the methods of the transfer of pollen grains from the anther to the stigma has been done. Next we have the very first things. So do you know the mechanism used by the plants to process or to promote cross-pollination? So in general also, not us, the plant also wanted to promote the cross-pollination. They have this self-advanced characteristics when they grow, so that they can avoid the self-pollination, and they can promote the cross-pollination. You know children, what is cross-pollination? The cross-pollination is the transfer of the pollen grain from the one flower, which is the one part, or is a stigma of, with the anther of the one plant to the stigma of the another plant of the same species. Yes, basically the whole transfer of pollen grain from the anther to the stigma of the another plant of the same species is called cross-pollination. And you know what is self-pollination? Transferring of the pollen grain of the same plant from the anther to the stigma. So why the plants are promoting the cross-pollination? What are the various methods they itself basically promoting the cross-pollination? Let's see children. Talking about the outbreeding devices and the cross-pollination, we have the various methods existed, or basically all the methods which are being done by the plant to avoid the outbreeding devices. To encourage the cross-pollination, the very first thing is the production of unisexual flowers. Yes, to have the unisexual flowers in the plant is one of the most better, actually I would say the only method for the plants to avoid the cross pollination efficiently. When there will be no bisexual flowers, basically if there will be unisexual, either male or the female, yes, it is going to efficiently avoid the self pollination. Next we have chasmogamy. You know what are chasmogamous plants? The open flowers. Yes, the clistogamous are the closed flowers. We have also discussed about the chasmogamy. What is chasmogamy? In this, the reproductive mechanism is the flowers have exposed the anther and stigma. Such flowers are called chasmogamous flowers. Children, in this kind of a flowers, the female or the male reproductive part are not exposed to the external environment and they are free to basically what? To pollinate, or basically to have the anther go and pollinate the other particular flower, or the stigma has the ability to basically germinate the pollen of the respective plant. Yes, because they are open, they are exposed to the external environment. Whichever pollen it wants to germinate, it will germinate, or nest the pollen, whichever particular stigma it wants to land, it can go and basically go and do the pollination. Next, non-synchronized pollen tube release and stigma maturation. Very simple. Even if there is a bisexual plant, simple, even if there is a bisexual plant, the male and female are on the same flower, what we can do, or not of course what we can do, I mean what a flower can do, the maturity period can differ. We can differ with the maturity period. The stigma might become more receptible to the pollen grains earlier, or maybe the anther is maturing first and stigma is not receptible to the anther. So the non-synchronized method is also helpful. Next we can have heterostely and self-incompatibility. Let's discuss all of these things in detail. Talking about the outbreeding devices, the very first thing about is the unisexuality, which have been discussed. What is unisexuality, children? In which the plant bears either male or a female flowers and it is not hermaphrodite. It means either the plant will have male flowers or it will have female flowers. This is, I told you, is the most efficient way of avoiding the self-pollination, to have unisexual flowers. Yes, it is going to avoid the whole self-pollination. Why? To avoid self-pollination, children, because the self-pollination led to express the plant the most recessive traits which are not useful for the plant. The whole, I would say, the expression of the recessive trait, or I would say unwanted characteristics, might be in the whole expression, might come in whole when the genetic expression is there, because of the self-pollination. And because of the cross-pollination, there is a very fair possibility of the variations, yes, to have good characteristics to basically express in the coming generation. So self-pollination might be good for few generations, but eventually it is going to give the non-essential characteristics. By the cross-pollination promotes the variation. The variation is always important. Yes, so the unisexual flower is to even have a female or the male flowers on the plant is going to enhance the possibility of cross-pollination. This is the first outbreeding device. Next, the dichogamy. What is dichogamy? Listen carefully. What is dichogamy, children? In this mechanism, the stigma and anther matures at different times. Who matures first? Dichogamy can be further divided into two. So, we can have anther and stigma on the same plant. Fine. We can have a bisexual plant, but the plant itself trying to avoid the self-pollination. How? By having the dichogamy. What is dichogamy? The anther, the male reproductive part, might matures first and the stigma is not ready to receive pollen grain. Yes, so basically it is being receptible for the pollen grain. Yes, or maybe eitherwise. The stigma is receptible for the pollen grain, but the anther is not mature enough to produce the male gametes. Yes, On the basis of dichogamy, we have further divided into two categories. The one is the protoandry, the other is the protogyny. What is protoandry? The name itself is suggesting protoandry. Pre-development. First, the anther is maturing in the first place. The androecium, which is a male reproductive part, is maturing first, and the gynoecium is maturing at the later stage. So that is what is protoandry. The anther is maturing first, but the gynoecium is not ready to receive pollen grains. Next, we have protogyny. In what protogyny, what is happening in the protogyny? Yes, of course, the gynoecium is going to mature first, but the anther is not ready to basically go and basically form a pollen tube or basically germinate on the stigma. Yes, so basically here the stigma, here the whole gynoecium is receptible, but the pollen grains are not mature enough to pollinate, to basically lead to the formation of pollen grains or the male gamete. So yes, these are the two self avoiding techniques of a plant so that they might not go for a self pollination and to promote the cross pollination. This is not done by anyone, this is a plant only. It is growing in such a way to avoid self pollination, because the plant also knows the cross pollination is going to basically enhance the chances of variation and the survival and to have good gamete, good expression of the genes. Next, we have more things to basically avoid the self pollination. Next, we have the heterogamy. What is heterogamy? So children, talking about the heterogamy, it is a typically physical barrier that prevents the pollen of the same flowers from avoiding to entering the ovary. Simple. It is also a basically method which is basically adapted by the plants to avoid the contact of the anther and the stigma. This is what you call heterogamy, the natural physical barrier. They may be the petals are coming around, okay, they may be covered with the petals. The stigma is not coming in the contact of the pollen grain only. Next, there is self-sterility. You know what is sterility? Going to be sterile. Yes, there is a gene that recognizes similar gene and does not allow the pollen grain to germinate. Yes, of course, the self-sterility is also one of those things in which the pollen grain, in which the stigma senses that I don't want to let this particular pollen grain germinate, on the stigma. So it is self-sterility. Next is the heterostyly. What is heterostyly? The name itself is very clear. It means the stigma and the anther are placed at different level. They are not able to basically come in contact with each other. Can you see this, children? The stigma is basically at the higher level and the anther is at the lower level. So basically the host heterostyly means the style part, the stigma style part, the filament part of the gynoecium or the whole megasporangium. It increases the pistil, the part of the pistil which is style increases so long that it does not come in contact with the anther only. That is what you call heterostyly, that we can basically create a distance between the stigma and the anther. So this is also a method of avoiding the outbreeding, the method of avoiding the self pollination through the outbreeding things. Yes, clear? So this is the natural method to avoid the pollen pistil interaction. This is a natural method to avoid the self pollination. Okay, I hope this is clear. Moving forward, talking more about, next we have pollen pistil interaction. Yes, what is the pollen pistil interaction? You know, there are so many plants are nearby. Yes, they produce so many pollens. So not every pollen is going to germinate on the stigma, because that interaction is truly chemical. Yes, they have this pollen pistil interaction to allow only certain kind of a pollen to germinate on the stigma. So that is going to basically, the very first thing comes into the mind when we talk about the pollen pistil interaction is that the transfer of compatible or right type of pollen grains on the stigma ensures post-pollination activities. Yes, the germination, the whole transfer of the right type of pollen grain from the anther to the stigma ensures the post-pollination activity. Yes, if it does not germinate, it will not form the pollen tube. If this is not forming the pollen tube, it will not fertilizes the egg cell. Yes, so the right of pollen is absolutely important. Next, the pistil can determine whether pollen is compatible or incompatible based on the either it accepts or rejects pollen. Yes, this is what I've been telling you. The pistil has an ability to let the particular pollen grain germinate or not germinate. If the pollen grain is totally mature and it is of particular species and the pollen is compatible with the stigma, the whole germination of the pollen tube formation will take place. Otherwise, the stigma is going to reject the pollen grain. It will not allow pollen to germinate. Yes, these are some natural methods to avoid. Okay, next, if pollens are wrong type either from the different species or from the same plant, in case of self-incompatibility, the stigma rejects the pollen. Yes, this is what. Why will the stigma reject pollen? Either it is belonging to the different species. Yes. Why the other species pollen is going to germinate? We want the pollen from the same species but from the different plant. The pollen is going to be rejected by the stigma on the basis of the rejection faced because they belong to the different species or they are not compatible even belonging to the same plant. Yes, to avoid self-pollination. So, stigma has the ability to also reject on the basis of that. They belonging to the different species, not compatible with, even for the belonging to the same plant. They are not mature enough, they are not ready to germinate to avoid self-pollination. Yes, the chemical composition of the pollen interact with those of the pistil to mediate this interaction between pollen and pistil. This is what I said. This is a whole chemical based interaction between the pollen and the stigma, so that pollen is going to germinate on the stigma, forms the pollen tube. This is a chemical interaction. Certain kind of a chemicals is being secreted by both of them so that the pollen could germinate on the stigma. So, the stigma, if I would say, is very choosy. That does not allow every pollen to germinate and have this self-rejection mechanism, self-incompatibility action. Yes, so the pollen and pistil interaction is very much important to basically let the sexual reproduction happen in the plant and to basically promote the variation and to promote the cross pollination. Next, for suitable pollination, the pollen grain germinate on the stigma resulting in the formation of pollen tube and one of the germ pores. You know what are germ pores? Yes, the pores are present on the pollen grains. When we are discussing about the structure of pollen grain, there I have explained about the germination. The pollen have pores and out of these pores the pollen tube will form. Whenever the pollen is compatible with the stigma, it is going to form a pollen tube through the germ pore present on the outer layer. Yes, the germ pore will lead to the formation of pollen tube because the stigma and anther are compatible and it is ready to fertilize the egg cell. Clear? This is about the pollen pistil interaction also. Yes, children, as you can see, this is the stigma, this is the pollen grain and this is how the pollen tube is being formed. There is an ovary, there is an egg cell and yes, it will going to fertilize the egg cell. So, this is all about how the pollen pistil interaction is taking place and what are the various methods to avoid the self-pollination and to promote the cross-pollination in the plant. I hope this is very clear. Yes? Yes or no? I hope this is clear, children. Moving forward, talking more about the pollen pistil interaction. Next, we have the pollen pistil action, other methods also talking about that. The pollen tube carry content develops through the stigma and style tissue to reach the ovary. Yes, the pollen tube, basically the pollen tube carry the pollen content, and the stigma is basically guiding that pollen tube so that it can reach to the ovary for the fertilization. In plants, pollen are shed at two cell stage. The generative cell stage divides into two male gametes. Yes, maximum number of angiospermic plants, they said the pollen grains are shed at two cell stage. What are two cell stage? This is we have discussed. The two cell stage is the stage where the pollen grain have the generative cells and the vegetative cell, and the generative cell will form two male gametes for the fertilization. Yes, this is very important because when we talk about the double fertilization, you will get to know why these two male gametes are important. Yes, all of these activities from pollen deposition to the stigma, pollen tube entering into the ovule constitute the pollen pistil interaction. So, everything we have discussed about the pollen pistil interaction, from rejecting the stigma, the pollen grain, rejecting the pollen grain on the stigma, not letting it to germinate. Yes, all the chemical composition should be matched, so the pollen tube formation could be there, and that basically the egg cell can fuse with the male gamete. Yes, all these things, the avoiding that if it's not from the same species, the stigma will reject the pollen grain. All that things are totally involved in the pollen pistil interaction. Yes, and everything is totally, even sometimes can you see this, the pollen of the same plant also is being rejected by the stigma. It is also not germinating. So the reason it is not germinating is because it does not, the pollen stigma does not feel compatible. Yes, it rejects the pollen grain and try to basically go for the cross pollination and avoid the self pollination by basically the formation of the pollen tube of the same species pollen grain germinating on the stigma. So as you can see how difficult it is for plants also to have this particular fertilization events to take place. Until and unless the pollen pistil interaction is successful, the post fertilization activities will not have, we will not have fruits, we will not have seeds, XYZ, we will not have it until there is a fertilization event is taking place. Clear? The outbreeding devices, the pollen pistil interaction, really hope this is clear. Yes. Moving on children, we have this so much discussion about the pollen pistil interaction. Next we have a question for you. Yes, we have a question for you. You need to connect the bubbles which encourage cross pollination. Which among them is going to encourage the cross pollination? Yes. Yes. Which among them is going to basically promote the cross pollination? Yes, the cross pollination is going to be promoted by the heterostyle. Yes, if the pistil which contains the style, stigma and ovary, the style, if the filament increases in length and it doesn't come in contact with the anther, and there is self incompatibility where the stigma rejects the pollen grain. Yes. Next question. Chasmogamy. What is chasmogamy? What does it refers to? This is we have already discussed in the previous session. Chasmogamous flowers. So what are chasmogamy? Flowers with exposed anther and pistil, maturation of pistil before maturation of anther, or maturation of anther before maturation of pistil. Closed flowers. Yes. What is about the chasmogamy? Yes, children, quickly answer. Yes, the correct answer would be the flowers which have exposed, the open flowers. So chasmogamies refers to the flowers which have exposed anther and pistil. Yes, completely true. So children, this is all about, we have discussed about the devices. So we have discussed the natural method of avoiding the self-pollination, but we are still left to discuss the artificial method of avoiding the self-pollination, which we will discuss tomorrow at the same timing. We are going to discuss how artificially we can avoid the self-pollination. What are the various methods to avoid self-pollination artificially? We are going to discuss how. Today we discussed about the natural method of avoiding the self-pollination or the outbreeding devices. So devices which encourage cross-pollination and discourage self-pollination are called outbreeding devices, and the examples of the outbreeding devices are having the unisexual flowers, showing the heterostyly and of course the self-incompatibility. Yeah, the pollen-pistil interaction is also one of the methods to basically avoid the self-pollination, because the stigma which totally rejects on the basis of being compatible and incompatible pollen grain. Yes, it can basically lead to the germination of a compatible pollen grain and totally can reject the incompatible pollen grain. Yes, if pollen grains are compatible, pollination will lead to the germination of the pollen grain, which will form a pollen tube through the germ pore, and the male gametes will reach to the egg cell for the fertilization. And all the activities are basically possible. The post-fertilization activities are only possible when the pollen germinates to basically fertilize the egg cell. So this is about the pollen-pistil interaction. We are going to also discuss about the artificial method. We are going to meet again tomorrow. But before you go, children, let me tell you about that. What happens if the reception of the right type of pollen in the stigma and the right type of stigma or pollen grain come in contact with each other? What will happen? Yes, we are going to discuss that also, that what will happen if the right type of pollen grain come in contact with the right type of stigma. Of course, the fertilization will happen. So we are going to discuss about that also. But before you go, children, we have the another questions related to it. Which of the following is not an outbreeding devices? Yes. Which among them is not an outbreeding device? Yes, quickly. Which among them is also not an outbreeding device? Heterostyly, chasmogamy, homogamy, dicliny. Which among them is not a outbreeding device? Heterostyly, chasmogamy, homogamy and dicliny. Yes. Following is an outbreeding device. Yes, the homogamy is not an outbreeding device. Completely. Yes, pollen-pistil interaction is mediated by chemicals. Do you think the pollen-pistil interaction is totally mediated by the chemicals? Yes or no? Do you think the pollen-pistil interaction is mediated by the chemicals? True or false? Absolutely true. Yes, the pollen-pistil interaction is totally mediated by the chemicals. So children, before you go, you know this is an Embibe app, which is an amazing app. What you have to do, you have to log in through your phone number, your email ID, and you can basically land on this page. And as you click on the home button, you will see there will be an Embibe live classes. All the respective classes will be basically scheduled on the Embibe live classes. You can join us over there. All the teachers respectively teaching the individual subject. Topic-wise classes is basically happening, and as it's the one-stop solution for everything, you can see that you can learn from this app through various videos. Yes, 3D videos, 3D lab things basically you can see over there here through the science, mathematics, social sciences. These are the from the 9th standard. You can change the CBSE, you can go for the CBSE, go for the 12th standard, select the language, and of course you can basically land on this page, and you can respective subject, you can select the respective subject and basically learn through the various things present on the Embibe app. You can practice several questions related to physics, chemistry and biology. Topic wise, chapter wise questions are already there. You can just solve as many as questions you want, and you can always give a test or create a test for you so that you can see how much you have understood the particular topic, and you can always check your progress through the Achieve. Yes children, we can basically, and the one other amazing app is the Embibe Lens app. What you have to do, just go download it, scan the text, and it will show you everything in 3D. We will meet again with the another topic tomorrow. Until then, take care, keep imbibing. Bye bye.
Keep imbibing. We believe in you.